Okay, so we're going to go back over box and whisker, and then there's a couple different questions on here that are going to be relevant to your summative that I want to touch on. And I'm also going to place another resource online for you to kind of just take a look at and show you kind of where we get these numbers from, just so this isn't blindsiding you or anything. Anyways, so first things first, talks about box and whisker. So again, we want to make sure that we're following all this stuff. The minimum and the maximum are the first things I'm going to find, because I'm going to put these numbers in order. Okay, so first let's put the numbers in order. That should be what we should do all the time. We should go 11, 12, 12, 13, 14, 14, 14, 16, and 18. So those are our highs and lows. So the minimum and the maximum require no math. The minimum is 11. The maximum is 18. Okay? Now, what that lends us to do is now I can find the range. Now, notice this, not all this information is in the order that we solve it. The information is in the order that it would be shown on a graph. So that's why it's written out this way. But the next thing I want to do is find my range. So I want to do that next. So I'm going to go 18 minus 11. Because if you remember, it is highest minus lowest. That's going to give me a range of 7. Okay. So that means here that the data is going to be packed very tight because there's not a big spread here. Okay. So in reality, what's going to happen is you're going to have a very closed data set here. So this is a very easy problem to work with. So our range here is 7. Next, I'm going to find my median. So I'm going to go back up to my number list here. I'm going to go here, here, cross those off, cross those off, cross those, cross those, cross those, and cross those. All right, so now I'm stuck at 14. So 14 is now my median. So that guy's left out of everything else that we're doing. I'm going to put him here, so there's my 14. Now I'm going to find my lower quartile. So we also call this Q1. This is Q3. All right. So what I'm going to do is I am going to cross off here to here, here to here, there to here. Oh, whoops, I messed up. Yep, we're going to do it next. Never mind. I am fallible, ladies and gentlemen. I do mess up. Now I have these two in the middle for Q1. So, anyways, I'm sorry, I got distracted there for a second. So I have 12 plus 12 divided by 2, because I have 2 of them there. That's going to be 24 over 2, which is going to also equal 12. So my Q1, my first lower quartile, is 12. Next, I'm going to go to my upper quartile. Boom, boom. And then I have these two guys in the middle, so 14 and 16. So that's not going to be as nice, but it's still going to come out nice. So 14 plus 16 is 30 over 2. That's going to equal 15. Even though 15 is not in our data set, it's going to be doing a nice job of showing a range of it. So IQR, remember that is my interquartile range. And that is going to be 15 minus 12, because it is Q3 minus Q1, and that's equal to 3. Okay, so now that I have this summary, I'm going to look and see what I actually need to solve these problems or to graph this information. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to my graph, Go 10, 11. I'm going to give myself some healthy space here. Okay, so I don't have to use the entire line. And that's the first thing I'm going to tell you. You don't have to use the entire line. I'm choosing not to here. It's like I said, it's a very closed data set, which means that basically the data is pretty close together. There's not a big range here. The range is 7. So I don't need a huge line here for 7 items. So anyways, so let's go through this right now. So I have my minimum, which I'm going to draw at 11. I have my maximum, which I'm going to draw at 18. I have my median, which is 14 here. So that's my median. I'll make a little M over it. Then my lower quartile here is at Q1. So that's Q1. I know my data kind of run into each other. I draw my little whiskers. My upper quartile is at 15. So that's Q3. Just letting you guys see everything that. And I'm going to connect it all the way out to my maximum out there. Okay? So we have that going on. So now that is our box and whisker. We're not talking right now about outliers or upper fences or lower fences. I'm going to cover that more next week. That's going to take a little bit of calculation. It's not super confusing. I don't remember if we're testing you on outliers or not, and if we are, you'll be able to do it. If not, you'll at least be able to recognize them when you see them on an SAT or map test. Okay. Now this would be the point in class where I tell Jackie and Alexis to put your phones away. But anyways, I honestly, I miss you guys. I really don't like teaching like this. All right. So we're moving on with that. I would talk about distribution, but that one's going to be a little bit confusing because you're going to have a fairly normal curve and stuff. But I want to talk more about this problem here. This, every year, throws students for a conundrum on our tests, or on our summatives. So, first thing I would do with this is I would label everything. So, here my minimum, if you look, the minimum is clearly at 7. My Q1, if you notice, if I draw a little line down, that's between 14 and 15. So we're going to go 14.50. Because remember, this is money. So I should label it in dollars. My median, if you look, that's more than 20, but it's less than 21. We're going to go with 20.50. Okay. And then here, boom, 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 boom. So that is 26. And then here, bump, 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 bump. That's going to be at $29. So there's something to note here. So it says this is of 12 CDs. Okay? So let's keep that in mind when we're working through the problems, because we're going to use that data or that statement to kind of answer some questions off the data. So now the cost of the upper quartile, that's pretty easy. You get that right off the graph. So I'm just going to go right to it. The upper quartile, the cost of the upper quartile is $26. That's right there. That's my Q3. Okay? Remember, upper quartile and Q3 are the same. All right, what is the range of the cost of CDs? Remember, range. And I'm going to keep reiterating this. This is the easiest thing here. This is highest minus lowest. All right, so highest minus lowest. So here, my highest is 29. My lowest is 7. That's going to give me 22. So that's my range is $22. All right. What's the median? Well, median is at this point right here. That's our median. It's our middle value. So that is at $20.50. Okay, now here's where things get kind of strange here, and this is where students kind of fall apart a little bit. It's these questions here, D, E, and F. Well, they're saying what cost represents the 100th percentile. A percentile is really just a comparison. So, for example, if I said, hypothetically, I'm going to pick on somebody in class, even though we're not there. Let's see. I'm going to pick on Melissa. So I'm going to pick on Melissa because, quite frankly, she's not here. But none of you are, but I'm going to pick on you anyways. So if, let's say, I put her at the 30th percentile for jump roping. That means that she is better than 29 other people out of 100 that jump rope. That's what that means. It's just a placeholder. So, for example, let's say you take a math test and you are in the 95th percentile in math. Well, that means if they lined up 100 people, you are better than 94 of them. You would be 95th in line. So, the higher the percentile number, the better off you are. In this instance, when they're talking about cost, the 100th percentile in this case is your maximum. So that's your max. So if our max is, of course, $29, so that is the highest cost. So they want to know how many CDs cost between, and here's the next conundrum. They want to know how many CDs cost between $14.50 and $26. Okay. So again, this is where the conundrum comes in for students, because I actually can tell you the answer to this, and you're going to kind of be like, wow, what? So let's kind of go through this, and I'll show you what I mean. And I will be putting a sheet out on how to figure this out as well. So everything in statistics is based off of your normal curve, okay? So this bell curve, I'm sure you guys have heard of it. Okay, so when you compare that to a box and whisker, here's your median, boom, 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 boom. That's your median, that's your average, mean, median, average. So there's that. Now I'm going to put a box and whisker underneath this plot. Yes, right here. Here we go. So here is a box and whisker. All right. Allergies are bugging Mr. Phyllis. Okay. So in a normal distribution, the percentages would be a little bit different. But the key word here, and this is, like I said, this is your min, this is your max, this is a Q3, this is a median, and then this is a Q1. All right. So the Q's, remember, if you remember what the Q stand for, it is a quartile. So you quartiles. So quartile. The root word of that is quart. So quart. If you guys know what that means 4. There are 4 quarters in a dollar. There are 4 quarts in a gallon. There are 4 quartiles in this data set. So The normal curve is a little bit different. The percentages, if we were looking at an actual normal curve, are different. But it breaks the curve down a little differently. And like I said, I'm going to put something on canvas here that will actually kind of explain that a little bit better, or actually give you a better visual of it instead of my fabulous artwork. But quarters. So that means everything here is 1/4. So this is 1/4 of the data. This would be 1/4 of the data. This would be 1/4 of the data, and then this would be 1/4 of the data. Now, I'll talk about the tails out here in a second. I'll talk about those real quick in a second after I talk about this. But if you remember, if you look at what, let's go with pink. If you remember how to break that down, so 1/4, if you divided it in your calculator, would be 0.25. So that means percentage-wise, you move it 2 spots to the right, so you have 25%. You should remember that from our interest unit. So percentages, you move the decimal spot. So same thing here, this is 25%. This is 25%, and this is 25%. Okay? So when they're asking you how many CDs cost between 14.5 and 26, if we're going to take a look at this, now this is where I'm going to bring this back into play. This 12. So how many CDs are there? There are 12. So 14.5 is my Q1 and 26 is my Q3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back down to my normal, my curve down here, my bell curve. So that means in between Q1 and Q3, I have the 25% and the 25%. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add them together. So in that box, this box right here represents 50% of the data. Well, what's 50% of 12? So if I go 12 times 0.5, that's really 6. Okay? So how many CDs cost between those two? 6 CDs. Because that is 50%. Where did I get that from? This is Q1 and this is Q3. So they're looking for the range, this interquartile range here. They're looking for the amount there. That's again a confusing concept. I understand that, but that's what that means. So now they're going to ask you here how many CDs cost less than $14.50. So they want to know, they're looking for this. They're looking for that. So if I'm going to this down here, down on this tail, so I'm looking at this, how many is it? 25%. I look at the decimal equivalent for it. That's at 0.25. So if I go 12 times 0.25, that's really the same thing as dividing it by 4. That's going to give me 3 CDs. Okay? That's how I get that. That's how it is split up. Once again, that is the conundrum with some of this stuff. Okay? And every year we have students taking their summatives or take that summative and they don't do super hot on these types of questions. But that's really how you do it. So let's see. All right, double box and whisker. This is one of the last things I'm going to show you today. This is not that big of a deal. So it says, and here's how we're going to do this. It says, first of all, to identify the 5 main statistics of each one. If you noticed, they're in order. Okay, so that's the first thing to check. Remember, are they in order? So they're first. Yes, they're in order. They're in order. Good. So that's Middletown Snowboards. Make sure that we label the graph. Okay. So this is price of snowboard. Spelled board wrong. Quiet. All right. So the price of snowboards. So I'm going to basically make Middletown snowboards in blue. And I'm going to make snowboard centrals in, let's go with yellow. We'll go blue and gold. We'll go school colors. I miss school. Alright, so now we have our min, Q1, or lower quartile if you want to say that, median, Q3, and our max. Okay? And then the same thing over here, your min, your Q1, your median, Q3, and max. Okay? So now, the minimum, pretty simple. I'm gonna put this guy right here. My minimum, obviously, 345. My max, obviously, 405. We'll go over here. Minimum, 343. My max is going to be 402. Alright, there are 6 snowboards in these data sets. Okay, so my median, okay, so I got the 2 in the middle. We got to add them together and divide by 2. That's going to give me 358. My Q1, now I have to split this. So my Q1, I'm going to go backslash, backslash. Oh, I have 350. That came out nice. So 350. And then go up this way. Backslash, backslash, 375 is my Q3. Okay. I know you guys can see that guy only got slash once, so you should be good to go. So that's my 5-number summary for that. Now let's draw the 1 box in whiskers to the Middletown while I have it up. So my minimum is at 345. My Q1 is at 350. My median is at 358, so I'm going to draw close-ish to 360. And then 375 would be my Q3. So I'm going to make a nice big box. And then 405 would be my max. It's going to be kind of between. Connect these guys. And because there's a lack of numbers, I am going to go 345 down here. This is 350. 358. I'm just going to put the numbers on the graph so we can make a little bit better comparisons. 375 and then 405. So I'll make a little better comparison with this. Alright, so let's look at this one now. We haven't really talked about Snowboard Central yet. We're going to have the same situation, 6 different snowboards. Boom, 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 boom. So now, 386 and 392. Again, we need to add those together. So that's going to give me 389 as a median. So that's going to give me 389. Okay, so I fence it off. Boom, boom, backslash. 370 is my Q1. 395 is Q3. Let me make him smaller so I can't fit this in. 395 is Q3. And my max comes up to 402. Okay. Alright. So, let's put this plot right on top of the other one. So, Snowboard Central, that's because I think they're different colors. 389 is my median. My max is 402. Q3 is 395. Q1 is all the way down here at 370. then the minimum is $343. Okay, so that is what my data distribution should look like right there. Okay, that's it right there. Now we're going to ask some comparison question. What's the median price for Middletown snowboards? Remember, Middletown is in blue. I'm going to switch my ink because I don't need that anymore. That's going to be $358. What's the lowest price you can get at Snowboard Central? Snowboard Central is $343. Most expensive at Middletown. I go right to the graph. That would be $405. And then what's the range of prices for snowboards at Snowboard Central? Remember, that is my max minus my min. So that's going to go 402 minus 343. So that is going to be $49. Excuse me, $59. Yeah, $59. Excuse me. It's $59. All right, what price represents the 75th percentile to the Middletown snowboards? Okay, this, guys, is where we talked last about this. All right, so 75th percentile, so that means 25, 25, 25. Okay, so that would be here at Q3. So what is my price at Q3 for, who's at Middletown? That is right there off the graph, $375. Now, this last question, the analysis question, you can say whatever you want. You can be creative. But there's no real wrong way to answer this. It says, which would you rather buy a snowboard from? Well, you could buy it from, you could say Snowboard Central. The lowest one is cheaper. You could say that. You could say, because that's if you want the cheap one. You could say Middletown. Why would you say Middletown? If you look at the box, you could say most boards cost less. And you could make that assumption because if you look graphically, their Q1 at Snowboard Central is just slightly lower than Q3. So basically 75% of the snowboards around there are cheaper actually at Middletown than Snowboard Central. So, like I said, no real wrong way to answer a question like that. Just make sure that when you say it, you explain it well. I mean, it didn't bring brands or anything like that into it. I'm sure that if they named brands or whatever, you could put down, oh yeah, I like the brands here better or whatnot. But that's not taken into account. You have to use some mathematical thing. I mean, the lowest price is cheaper at Snowboard Central. The highest price is actually cheaper too by about $3. But you know, most of the boards cost less. So that's what this graph tells me. So you're lower on that end, you're lower on this end, but in the middle, your middle boards are higher priced than the middle boards there at the other place. So that's up to you, depending on which one you want to buy. So I hope that made sense. And you guys have yourselves a fine day.